right, now we're live. So
All
we should
right.
have some of your friends. Or what? So I'm looking forward to this. Known Chris for a while. I'll give you a little bit of background about him, and then I'll let him introduce himself a little bit. But he came to me when we were doing what's called Fight Club, and that's a Bible beatdown is basically what it was, where we would do some Bible study and we would do MMA fighting, and then at the end of the 8 weeks, we'd get in a cage, and those that wanted to fight got to test their skills. I think you fought a couple times in there, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah. That was
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. That's we'll talk a little bit more about that. And he's now one of the main pastors of the recovery at Freedom Church. He's kind of in charge of that over there, and just a life turnaround. We'll get into that and what that looks like for you. So, Chris, with no further ado, why don't you introduce yourself and your where you're at and what you do with your pastor, and we'll talk about your other business stuff here in a second.
All right. All right. Yeah. So my name's Christopher Trujillo. I came, like you said, broken, busted, and disgusted, if you'd like to call it like that. And I got to meet Master Cox in the studio after going through a lifelong struggle of addiction to drugs and alcohol. I like to say, I was a user and abuser, not just to myself but to others, because I had that stinking thinking, and I came to a realization that raising three kids on my own wasn't going to work if I decided to keep going down the path I was going. So, struggled with a lot of issues in life. Other than that, is just just had that calling to go to church. And for a guy like me, that was not the place I thought I'd ever end up. And to become, who I am today, like you said, I lead our recovery and our homeless outreach at Freedom Church, and you know, that entailed too. I wouldn't have ever put myself in this position almost 8 years ago, in thought, because I just, I was in my own ways. I was prideful, and who cared about anybody else, right? I
Yeah.
think that mentality gets everybody stuck in their ways, and I was done. I was done being stuck in my ways, and I had three kids. Like I said, I wanted to raise them right, and I wanted to give them the life they deserve. So.
Yeah, it's when people know about you when you came. Now, listen, did you were you at church and then you learned about our fight club, or um how did that come about?
So that came about. I think we started the life group sessions, and it was only two, it was about 2 months into being at the church, and my brother Jose came up to me and said, "Hey, first coming into the church is when I met him, and he was the first one that came up and he prayed on me, and I was like, what? I didn't raise my hand, I wanted to be in denial, when they said the altar call." The message that Pastor Justice gave that day was directed towards me. And I was even thinking, who's telling him all this in his ear? Who's in the crowd that knows me? And, my thoughts were, he was getting information in his ear so he could keep talking to me, not because they wanted my money, but because they wanted me to think I was the guy that needed to be there. Well, really, that was, again, I was the guy that needed to be there, but his message just really related to me and translated to my life. And, so yeah, 2 months later, we went into life group session, and at that same time, I went the night before. I don't know if you remember this, but the night before, we had a group over at one of the life group houses, and it was being ran by Vanessa and Richard, who are both pastors at our church, and they just welcomed me. They opened up the door, but the first time I walked in that door, it changed my life, because they said, "Would you like a piece of gum?" Someone at the door smelled my breath, and I was like, "Oh man, no, I'm good. I don't need any gum." And I walked in 5 more steps, and it was like, "Hey, you need some gum." And I was like, "Okay." So I took the gum, and I received the message that they gave that day as well. And that time alone, again, my arm went up, and I was like, "Why does my hand keep going up when they ask for prayer?" And so I said, "Okay, I guess I'm gonna drive home tonight, and I'm gonna not go to the grocery store, liquor store, and get another beer." Looked at my daughter, and I was like, "Yeah, I think I'm gonna do it for her this time." And sure enough, the next night was Fight Club, and it was 24 hours later, and I walked into that Fight Club, and I remember telling you guys when they said for prayer, I remember intentionally putting my hand up and saying, "Guys, I'm 24 hours sober, and I need this." And Pastor Justice just said, "Let's pray for him, guys." And that to me felt good, because it was that fellowship. I think, not I think, I know I was looking for, and the band of brothers there, and you said, the Bible study beatdown. I mean, it was no joke. It was true. It was real, and he did get hurt, but at the same time, you guys taught us how to get through it. So
Yeah, I remember, and I remember you coming. Matter of fact, I even remember you coming a little bit, probably drunk every once in a while to that class. Uh, and you're not the only one, or some of the guys smelling like pot, and we would just physically, get you sober just through the exercise part. I mean, you remember
oh
everybody
god,
just throwing up
yeah,
outside or whatever that was. It was and that was real. I think that's when you guys got a chance to meet, because I think a lot of these guys, they won't step inside a church, but they certainly would step in to be do some fighting and some MMA type stuff and feel comfortable and there. So yeah, and I don't know if you know this, but Carlos and I are going to bring that back on the next go round. The next sign up,
yeah.
Carlos and I are going to do it. So
I heard you
it's going to
mention it, and
be
I talked to Carlos, and got some guys ready. Yeah, they're
yeah,
on fire some of these days.
yeah,
They don't
because
know what they're expecting.
and it's different now because my training, you know, dabbling into the jujitsu a lot more like I did. I said the workouts are going to be brutal. So
Yeah,
it's just been it's been fun watching you grow, because I've seen just how important it is for someone like you when you are probably, how I am. I'm not in that world, right? I'm in the opposite world, right? I was in
yeah,
with law enforcement and all that kind of stuff, and so having somebody that's in that world that can relate to people, I mean, it's always good that I can be able to come and talk to you and say, "Hey, man, is this guy for real?" And then you've actually helped even with students of mine when you see that students are just that far gone when it comes to drugs and alcohol, and me getting some better feedback from somebody when it's real and when it's not has always been super helpful. I mean, but you guys are pretty tough on them too, man. It kind of reminds me of Bible Beatdown. I mean, you guys got some set of rules, and you either fall in line or you fall off. Well, I mean, one of the two is happening, right?
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, going into that, with the outreach that we do with the showers and every Saturday, they get to come in. They get to, before the pandemic, obviously, we used to have more of a setting, a social setting where they could sit down, and we brought people out to sit with them and talk with them, just like we did at our Friendsgiving, but on a every weekend basis. And it comes to a point where if we see they're inebriated, or if they've actually stepped away, and we send somebody to check on them, and they're doing something they're not supposed to, we say, look, I'm going to give you one chance here, and I'm going to tell you, you got to go today, but and that takes away from the shower for the day, and I think and a meal. I can't give it to them and enable them to say, okay, come as you are, and do what you do, like we do at the church. We're a belong before you believe and come as you are church. But on Saturdays, when they come for the showers, we've got to be hands down, because and nailed down on that, because if we let them do it, especially and one does it, then the next one's going to do it. So we cut them off and we tell them. And then there's been a few times where we've had to say, look, I don't think until I can see some real progress in your life, like you really getting sober or doing something. And I've had that happen where they've come up and said, okay, I'm ready. Got them into treatment, got them into detox, help them find their ways, get them a social worker, and now they've got a house, so or an apartment of some sort from the programs. But yeah, you can't, if you want it, you want it. If you don't, you're just going to be stuck in, like I said, in your mindset of, I'm okay. I want to be this way, and some are. Not everybody's challenged in the addiction, substance abuse, but some of them just that mental state of mind. If we can get some of them the help that they need, we're willing to do that so that they can re-enter society in a better way, and come and show us that. And I've had a couple stories where they've come to the church and they've showed me that they've done it. And like I said, it's not me. It's just pointing them in the direction that they could always go into.
Well, so when you first was doing this, was it just a quick turnaround? Were you one day you think, and then the next day you made a mindset and you completely changed, or was there times that you fell back? Uh, what does that look like? What was that look like for you?
So I think for me, I had a pride wall. Like I said, I came in with the attitude of I'm going to see what this church is about. And I don't know if you remember the podcast back in because it was podcast then. It wasn't even video. I think it was just a casted message on Facebook back when I came in. 2013 was the first service I listened to on Facebook. It was an audio, and it was a picture of John Claude Van Damme and he was doing the splits over the RVs. And I said, "Oh man, John Claude Van Damme, he goes to this church." And I was thinking in my head, but I just listened to it, and it really, again, it touched me in a way where I said, "Okay, 2014, I'm going to that church, the first service." And I entered the church and took my daughter to the kids ministry, which, I looked at her and I was like, I'm not sure. Do I want to send her in there or take her with me? And she ran. I was like, okay, I guess she's going in there. And then they sat me in the sanctuary. And I gotta say, I came with the mindset that I'm gonna see what this is about. And after hearing the message, I'm like, I'm coming back next week. And yeah, I mean, but as far as my recovery goes, I did. I gave it all to God at that time. I surrendered completely, 100% everything I was doing, and I'm proud to say I can't say I'm the only one, but I'm one of the few that has been able to say when they gave it up, and they didn't go back. And I haven't had any slip ups, and yeah, I can 100% tell you that if I hadn't walked in those doors, I'm most likely, and I can say I wouldn't be here today because the things I was doing and the operations I was running outside, in my own little business was, that street business would have killed me.
That's definitely I've heard your story about that too. The just there's more than just the addiction that's out there in the streets. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot that goes in it, and there's a lot of criminal element that's out there, and it's hard. I mean, we've had these talks before, because I've helped some of these, because I have a real heart when I see females out on the street anyway. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
always kind of like I don't know. It's always kind of gets to me a little bit when I see them. And but then again, sometimes on the streets, the women are really more of an instigator. Sometimes even it's just such a catch-22 when I'm out there, and it's hard for me. So it's always a blessing to kind of see that. So I ask this quite often because that we have a mutual person under me that just cannot seem to get clean, and how that takes a toll on family, and to be on the street where you're almost dead, and then I mean, you're almost dead and you have a complete back workup where you almost can't walk, and you have an infection in your blood, and you still beat it all, and then you walk out of the hospital because the pull to do the drug is more than the the pull to be healed and not have to go through that. That's I mean, so you got to deal with that on daily, I would imagine. Is that correct? That you've
So
got this thing.
yeah, yeah.
So
I've
how do
I've
you
had
do
a
that? How
few.
do you counsel? How do you counsel people that almost can't help themselves, but you keep interjecting? I mean, is it a nonstop battle? Is there some tough love where you say you don't come to me until you do steps A, B, and C, or how does that work?
Absolutely, the tough love. That right there is the only thing in a circumstance like that you can do because again, um, we try the first step of okay, come to the meeting. Let's get you introduced to some people. Maybe you know them, maybe you don't, and see where you're at. And if you can, you understand the saying, "Fool me once, fool me twice." But I'm not the person that likes to be fooled at all. So if you're coming in and you're coming in to say you want to do it, then we're gonna really do it, and we lock arms. But if I see that they're just kind of faking it to make it, then I have to have that real tough love with them and tell them, look, you gotta get clean outside of this place before you can come back into this place, and that hits them because then they've already made friends or they felt that they were at home and we've had to take that away from them and I think when we do that, it shows them that we care, but it also shows them that they're in a place that's really bad that they have to go out and find it because we've done what we could on our part, but there's been some that have. I've gone out and done that and come back a few years later and said, look, this is who I am, and I commend them for that. There's one gentleman who you talked about earlier with the Fight Club, and you remember him when he came in, and I took him under my wing, and today he's a leader at our church. And
Hmm.
I got to say, just seeing that guy come up, I mean, he was going to have a 4 year stint of jail if he didn't do it. And he said, I need this. What do I got to do? So I actually took him out to a treatment center. I took him to our Saturday fellowship, was called Brewline, and that's in San Fernando. I took him there, and I said, hey, I got to introduce you to somebody. And that guy said, come on, bring him to the treatment center. It was out in Koreatown. I took him there, and the words out of their mouth was, it's going to cost you. And he's like, man, I'm going back. I said, let's figure something out for you. And we figured it out. We got him in that day, and we were able to say, hey, let's see what 6 months down the line, because they said if you do 6 months of treatment, you won't be doing 4 years of jail. You'll be on probation. And he did. He did his 6 months. He brought people back and forth from Koreatown on those orange lines and red lines, and made it to our meetings here in the valley on the weeknights. And I just commend him for doing what he's doing today. And I know that that man's life wouldn't be what it is today if I hadn't said, okay, let's walk this together, because I think that it's locking arms and showing them you care is the only way it's going to work if they're serious. But when you distance yourself and just say, okay, here's steps 1, 2, and 3. Come back to me when you're done. Rarely does that work, because they're on their own, and just like it says, and just like we said with the Bible, you can't walk alone. In life, you can't walk alone. And that's why the band of brothers that brought me in, I gotta say, I wouldn't be who I am today if those guys didn't say, let's meet on Saturdays for coffee, go to church on Sunday. They took me to a service in midweek. And it wasn't at our church, but they said, just you got to stay plugged in, you got to stay busy, because that's the key there. You got to stay busy, because that's the only way. They tell us in recovery is 90 meetings in 90 days, and and that's for a reason. It's so you stay busy and get your mind off of what you were thinking of doing in that idle time before. And I know that idle time it drives a person crazy, and it gets them thinking what can I do, and what I used to do, and that's how people fall back.
Yeah, which is really good advice. Now, I being the head of the recovery over there. I mean, I don't know. Did I guess Freedom they've always had a recovery? Is that correct, or are you kind of the pioneer of where it's at today?
Yeah, so that's just 18 months into the program, or 18 months into the church. Pastor Justice came up to me, and he says, I think you're ready to lead a group. And I said, oh, okay. I said, this will be fun. I said, I was, an entrepreneur like myself. I had a business that was doing, we were selling health products, and we had a shake. And I said, okay. I said, this is what we're going to do. And I'll partner up with one of my friends, and I said, let's do this called Faith and Fitness. We're gonna take him to the park, and he was a physical trainer. So I said, we'll train them at the park. We'll give them our shakes, and then once they taste it, they'll buy it, and then we'll tie to the church 10% of what we make. And I went to Pastor Justice with that, and I said, hey, I said, I figured it out. I said, we're gonna do Faith and Fitness, and he goes, what? What's that? And I told him, and he goes, oh, that's not what I want you to do. I don't want your money. God doesn't want your money. He wants your testimony. And I said, what does that mean? And he goes, go figure that out. I said, I got to figure out what my testimony is, or figure out what my group is going to be. And he's like, no, just come back to me next week. And that's when I came to him, and I said, do you mean a recovery group? And he goes, yeah. He goes, I want you to lead a recovery group. And he partnered me up with Greg Watkins, who's a pastor now. And he told me, you're going to do this with Greg. I said, Greg? And he goes, yeah. And I said, okay. And so I talked to Greg about it. He goes, yeah, I wasn't going to do it if you didn't do it. And so we did. We ended up doing it. And that was just it. I found out recovery was what he wanted me to do. And so Greg and I, we did it at one of the offices for the first few weeks. And then we ended up in the house of the gentleman I told you went to treatment. And that's a funny story there. The first night we did that, we walked up to that house. I could smell weed. I mean, clear as day. He's like, I hope that's just a skunk in the neighborhood. And I said, I can tell you right now, that's not a skunk. And so we're walking up, and we open the door. His mom opens up the door for us and lets us in. And that happens to be Kelly Ratner, who
Mhm.
was my co-leader. She leads the women's group, and she says, "Come on in." And I said, she looked at me and kind of like she could smell it, and I was like, "Okay." And so we shook hands, we said hi, and she got her son over and introduced us. And Dave was just like, "Hey, how are you?" And just looked at me like I was the gardener, to be honest with you. And I always love telling that story. And we ended up talking for a minute, but in his mind, he was like, "Look, I don't want any addicts here at my house, unless they're my friends." It's how he had said it in his head. But yeah, sure enough, we were able to do the group at her house because we couldn't do it at the offices anymore. And yeah, that was the launch. It was in 2000. It was I think it was the beginning of 2016 and end of 2015. But yeah, we did it and we made it happen and we're here today. Like I said, going strong with our recovery. We got a men's group on Tuesday nights with all the sober livings in town. We bring them in, allow the doors to be open. Salvation Army also partnered up with them to let their guys come, and that's a Saturday. I mean, that's a Tuesday stag meeting. Our women meet online right now, and then we have our mixed group on our large group on Wednesdays. That's a co-ed, and we started with the Celebrate Recovery, and that deals with habits, hurts, and hangups. So we thought that's a good intro because not everybody's just addicted to drugs and alcohol. It's not just a substance abuse; it's a life style of whatever. And yeah, we had to say, look, come as you are, and if you're dealing with an issue of outside of substances like anger, or we had even people come in for food addiction and anger management needs, and so we've opened the doors completely to anybody that just needs to come in and feel like they're there for rehabilitation in their way of what they need.
Yeah, I think, and that's group, and I don't know. We can talk about men for a second, but it's hard for men to get together and speak about anything. Okay,
Yeah,
as far as that goes, some personal stuff on my end when you talk about and when I'm listening to some of this stuff. Um, Me too. I checked myself into a an anger management group for 6 months when I was first going through divorce. And,
okay,
and to try and the thing is, I mean, between you and me, I mean, I've been a single dad for a long time, right? And I just know when it comes to men's mental health and stuff like that, even if you look at Father's Day and all that kind of stuff, we're like on the bottom of the barrel. I mean, really, when it comes to men, they're not really put on any type of a pedestal. So sometimes we just kind of clam up because it really doesn't matter. You know what I mean? That's just kind of the
yeah,
thinking that I had. So when I went through that group thing, and it was hard for me too to go through a group thing because you just don't want to talk to a bunch of people. You know what I mean? And but man, when you're here there and you see, well, one thing I did learn is I'm like, man, I'm not quite as angry as some of these guys. Holy criminy, okay? When you're bashing your girl's head on the banister of their bed and stuff like that, when you get somebody that's court mandated as opposed to somebody that like myself that it was volunteer to go in and to see that, so to learn these lessons, and I know that for that part of me, right, is there's a physicality that I know when I'm physical. I think a lot of people think that when we go to the gym, it's just kind of a rah, alpha male type thing. But the physicality of martial arts and the physicality of hearing iron and clanging iron was always super therapeutic to me. How does physicality come into play? What do you think when it comes to uh, addiction recovery? Is it something that helps people, or is there different other avenues that people kinda gravitate to? Because you
well,
talk about idle time, so how do you encourage people to take up idle time? What do you do with that?
yeah. So again, obviously meetings. If they're coming in and if they're in a really bad place, I do suggest a meeting every day. But you can only do so many meetings in the day. So yeah, feeling that gap, that time with going to the gym or picking up something that's gonna some books or some. We have tools that we give them to take home with them and to say that, hey, this is what you need to do in that time of, that idle time, or that thinking, as we call it. And, I'll tell them, I said, look, if you can walk away 5 minutes from your mind of telling you that, look, this is the temptation talking here. If you can take 5 minutes and walk away from your temptation, most likely you're not gonna have that craving anymore. You're gonna subside it, at least to, when it comes back again. But I always encourage, call your sponsor. If you don't have one, I tell them they need to get a sponsor. But I tell them, if you don't have a sponsor and you got an accountability person that you go to the meetings with, or you can talk to, pick up that phone, or make it a point to go see them, or get out of that headspace, because it's the headspace that gets a lot of people back into relapsing. And with me, I don't like the word relapse. I like to call it a reset, because if they're going to be willing to come back, let's just start over. Let's start over. Let's look at what you did, in that time of, you were doing good. You had months, you had days. Even if it's, like I said, if it's a day and you're going day to day, let's see let's get a journal going. Because if we get the journal going, like it tells us in our step work, we're supposed to have a daily journal in due time, and start keeping track of, where we're at, and how we're doing, so that we could actually then go back and figure out where's the trigger, what's making it happen. And when you can figure this out, then you can overcome it. And I've had many success stories out of that, journal. And our church, with me, it was doing the soap, because I got to learn what the soap was, and that's the scripture, the observation, the application, and the prayer. And my guys would keep accountable to that, to say, hey, who did theirs today? And we would actually show a screenshot of it, or take a picture of it, and send it to them. But that was my journal in the beginning, and then I started doing the recovery journal, and I started to see that my mind was clear, because I was writing it down, and I was able to go back and keep track of where I was at. So I think that's really it, and knowing that, that when the temptation comes, like I said, you just got to find something to fill that gap of time, and not fall into the trap.
I think that one of the things you just said, I think you're right about some of the tools you have can kind of work anywhere. It's this. I liked what you said about it being a reset, right?
Hmm.
Not, where you I guess you fall and you reset and you can't, because I think that's what I think. I don't know. I guess that can work on anything, even whether it's weight loss, whether it's whatever. A couple of things you said there, right? When you say that refocus your mind you know, when temptation's hitting you, focus your mind somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
And the temptation will go. I think that was an awesome pointer there. And the reset, the notion of it's going to be a reset. I
Yeah.
guess you got to deal with the people that want to reset every day, right? At some point you kind of say, look, bro, uh, resetting every day is not quite what we're talking about here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I get to the point where I got to tell them, life isn't easy. I mean, that's just it. My life, getting my life in order wasn't easy, but I got to let them know that God doesn't do things on purpose. He does it for a purpose. And, the 4F, for me was, what did it, the family, fitness, the finance, and the faith. Those became my cornerstones. And this foundation was also what helped balance me, because the equally divided, you put a little bit into, you have to have, 25% into four, boxes there. And if you want to outweigh one for a little, okay, but you got to know, to equally balance, you've got to have these, you got to have these in line. And it's knowing that the uncertainties of life, you know, we have to appreciate the time we get with our family. We have to know that tomorrow's not promised. We have to know that, let's do our best today, because the problem is we make things more complicated than we need to. I think in life, people do that. People overcompensate for things, and don't put enough into some other things. And the clear thoughts will help you see things in the way that, for me, it was clearing all my thoughts so I can see what is my vision and what is God's vision for me, what is His plan for me. Because it took a minute for me to say, what is this? I had a guy come up to me that was an atheist and tell me, I'm having a hard time believing. I've surrendered, but I'm having a hard time believing. And he's like, it's not my negative attitude. He goes, it's just I don't know where to start. So we point him in the direction, and he even said, my recovery is going okay. He goes, but I want to line myself up. I want to do this right. He goes, because I've done other programs and they didn't work. And I don't, I tell him, look, I don't bash other programs because that's not me. I still go to other meetings. I still attend, to be, out there to see, engage what's going on in the world because, it's in our own back door. So we have to be willing to know. But in order to grow in your faith, you have to learn how to have trust and have faith because I will tell them if there's faith or doubt, you got to cast it out and put if there's fear or doubt, cast it out and put faith back in because that little bit of faith could be what saves you from going back out.
When you so you said now you're a single father too, is that correct? Or
Yeah,
no?
single father
Yes.
of three. Yeah,
And
single father of three,
and
and
have the kids full time uh or how was the well how did you have all your children when you first went through this? And what is it
so
like to see their dad now?
yeah. So the beginning of this all. Here's what happened in 2011. My wife and I had separated. And when we did, I said, look, I said, I went through it. That's when I hit my rock bottom hard. And I like to use my brother Dave's example of rock bottom because that's where I was. I hit my rock bottom so bad that I had to jump to touch my rock bottom. I mean, I was below it. I was doing everything under the moon and sun to make it about me, and the kids were still there, and they were watching this happen. And I think I had been doing some, I had started getting into some network marketing, and so I'd go to meetings and and network my businesses, but I wasn't going to meetings that needed to help value my life or do better for me in my life. Because even at those, out there at those meetings after you got done with the meeting, everybody was going and drinking and hanging out. And, so I was like, okay, I had a friend of mine who took me to one conference. And at the end of the conference, this is where I first found God again. And growing up as Catholic, funny story. I mean, I was going to church because my mom forced me when I was younger. But I was, kneel down, sit down, stand up. If you
Mhm.
didn't, you got pinched on one side, you got pinched on the other, and from grandma or mom. And when you got home, you didn't get any pozole. So I was like, no, I'm going to go to church this weekend, be good. That was my younger mindset. But again, when I went to this network marketing group and we had church on a Sunday after the conference, that woke me up a little. And then when their mom looked at me and said, "You're going to church?" I said, "Yeah, I'm going to church." And she goes, "Well, don't make the kids go." I said, I'm not going to force them, but like I told you earlier, my daughter loves going, and she went, and she founded a place of Sunday was fun for her, and so we kept going back. But yeah, I took the kids in after 2 years of us being separated, and I said, look, I said, full time, don't want you to take them down this rabbit hole, and I'm going to raise them right, and for for the sake of it all, here's something that gets a lot of people, and I don't impress upon them by telling the story. It's really about the fact that my two boys aren't mine by blood. I took them in because I was the only father they knew. The oldest one's dad was incarcerated for murder, and my middle boy's dad was just a deadbeat dad. So when she left, I said, or when her and I separated, she actually took off for a little bit of time, and I had them for 9 months. And I said, yeah, I'm going to keep these kids. I'm going to do what I can to make things right. And within that next year is when I went to the church, and yeah, I raised them since they were, since she left. But I've raised the boys since they were 2 and 4, and I've had my daughter in my life for all my life, and they do see the transformation. That's the best thing.
Yeah, I think that it's amazing on how perceptive your children are when they're watching you doing what you do. It's interesting you talk about network marketing, and because I've been in a few, I didn't really. I was scrolling through your pictures the other day, and I saw
Yeah.
ACN, right, and I'm like, I did
Oh,
ACN,
yeah,
and
yeah.
ACN, those guys are pretty big Christian dudes. The owners
That's
of that
where I got.
company.
Yeah, that's where I went the first time. Yeah.
Is that where you went the first time? I was big in that. Larry Raskin and all that. I'm still really good
Oh
friends
my
with him
God.
today.
Wow, that's
Very he's
awesome.
like
Yeah.
one of my he's like a very close friend of mine. We speak quite
That's
often. As a
so
matter of fact,
cool.
he's going to be on my podcast soon. And
That's so cool.
yeah, so when I saw ACN, I'm like, how did we not run into each other? I don't understand that because I was doing that for a
I was
minute, man.
I
And
I got to be number three underneath their in marketing out here in the states. I mean, I was running a really good program, and I had teams going underneath me left and right. And yeah, Dean Trujillo, he was my the guy that was leading me there. And yeah, so I think by that mindset again was okay. I'm doing good with my life as far as financial, but here again, and I talked to those those cornerstones. I wasn't, I was coming home to the kids because we'd go to those conventions and we'd come home and we were driving forces during the week, and but I'd go see my kids' baseball game, or I'd go with my daughter to her plays or her dances at school. But here it wasn't the full 25% into that, and my fitness was okay. I was working out, but I wasn't doing what I should have been doing, and so yeah, I just know that my friends, I probably negated them so much that it was like I'm working, and we got to have that balance. We got to be able to say we're going to go out with our friends and enjoy time. We're going to have time with our family. We're going to know that our finances are order, and then the faith thing, like I said, that box is empty. So I had to find a way to put something into that box, and that's where I found freedom. And I just know that I was able to trust them when I walked in. I felt at home. They are a belong before you believe, and come as you are type of church. But I always say it's like a dissected sandwich when you get there. You've got all the contents of the sandwich, the condiments, the meat, the bread, the everything you need for it. It's how you want it. How much do you want this week? How much do how do you want to make your sandwich this week? And you could keep packing on what you want, or you could just take what you're getting and eat it, and come back next week and it'll be there again for you.
yeah, it's true. They've done quite a thing at Freedom on that. I like I've always liked that, belong before you believe, because I've been to a lot of churches here in the area and everything else, and a lot of them are kind of, who's coming to the church where it's full of Bentleys, Mercedes, and everything else. You know what I mean? You got to be able to fit in somewhere to to have some of that growth. And it's it's when I listen to you, so it doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, you were already an entrepreneur on the outside. Network marketing is no easy gig. You know what I mean? And you're
Yeah,
building teams there. I'm sure you built teams when you're doing things you weren't supposed to be doing. I'm sure you had a whole
yeah,
organization there, and it just seems like
yes,
that's what you got. And I'm sure now you've got organizations now in the church where you change lives through recovery. None of that surprises me as I sit and talk to you a little bit about what you do. Now, you do some other stuff here. Once again, I didn't know about this, but I guess at that friend's Thanksgiving that we did, and when I was there, that you do
yeah,
catering on the outside also. So you still continue, with your ministry, and you got, I guess, businesses on the outside that you continually do. That's probably why you're able to go and do all this stuff with your daughter and her cheerleading, because you're just kind of an entrepreneur that way anyway. I think as
yeah.
single dads,
So
right, we figure out how to make things happen so we can be with our children. So,
absolutely, and that's just it. I figured, corporate America was never for me. I wasn't that guy, and so when I saw network marketing after, uh, I think I started network marketing in like 2010 was my first real one, and I found that was appealing to me because again it allowed you to do things on your own time. But early in my right out of high school, I started working in a kitchen doing prep work. And I loved cooking since I was 8 years old. I remember I said to grandma one summer, "What's for breakfast?" And she hit me in the head with the pan and said, "Cook your own eggs, damn it." I was like, "Oh, okay, here we go." So I came home. I remember coming home and cooking for my mom, and in my teenage years, and always not have. She always didn't have to worry. I was either at the store or I was at home cooking. My friends loved it too because they got to come over after school, and I would try everything with them, and how does this taste and what is this like, and so. But yeah, then I went to culinary school and graduated in 2000, and took that on full bore. I went and I worked at a assisted living. I remember that was my first job outside of culinary school. and I went to this assisted living place, and you know, I fell in love with the fact that we could just mass produce this, the food like catering does, and so I even started making my own rubs and spices, and I was doing things for a while, but I couldn't market them. I didn't know how, so again, I was like, well, then I'm just going to stay in the catering world, and I went into the catering world pretty hard and did my own catering company. So since 2000, I've had my own catering business on the side, and I've done everything under the sun and moon with motion picture catering, private events, even private chefing. I've worked at treatment homes, to help them. Started up a couple of the businesses, local businesses, and get their, went in and just kind of help show them the ropes of how they're going to need to do this and what the food cost would be. So I kind of, consulted it sometimes. But yeah, like you said, a real entrepreneur, but at the same time, I did it because I wanted to be able to make time for my kids. And, it's the same thing like a journey in life, one step, one foot in front of the other, and just knowing that, we're going to get stuck at times. And there was times where I'm like, why am I doing this? Can I try this? Do I need to go and do this? And, that's how growth happens is if you take the right steps and you do the right things and just, I think it's also both in recovery and life, patience, knowing that patience is a virtue, and that's hard. I mean, some of us being a man with patience and saying we want to take time and do it right. I mean, you got to laugh at that because it's true. I mean, we don't all have patience like we need to, but I think that's the way we can get through it, and that's the necessary piece of the puzzle for growth.
Yeah, that's been awesome. So your other so I was at, on the Thanksgiving thing, I was, people that may don't know, but anybody locally that we at church, you guys have a where they can come and get groceries on
Yes,
Wednesdays. I
pop up pantry on Wednesday.
Right. So, it's a drive-through, and I mean, there was cars lined up because I think you guys even given turkeys and everything out there, and I was super impressed that day because, I was there, security wise for, just, keep everything, because there's just expected a lot of people. And so, but to watch the team and all these volunteers that are all in on people that, were needed food and just watching the whole operation, you know what I mean? Just all the food that goes out and watching them bag, watching them put it in cars and just, just keep people rolling. I was super impressed with that team that day. I mean, that was one efficient team. I could tell you that. They are obviously they've been all working together for a little bit, but the I think in this kind of a world where you don't, and I also know as a volunteer, right, you're never really given any kind of acclimates, right? If you're looking for acclimates, you're really in the wrong business if you want to be a volunteer, right? And I
Yeah.
was so impressed with these guys' teamwork and how they did everything and how they communicated and they sending food down and this one has that. Do you need this? And boom, off they go, and continually watching that line go through and through. That was just quite something to see. You know what I mean? And I think that's what is that an every Wednesday thing over at church, right?
Yes, that's an every Wednesday. They do it starting. The line starts early, but technically we kick things off as early as we can with and give as much as we can. We've been blessed to get the donations, and there's been times where we've struggled to get the donations. I remember when we first started it, I was driving around to every 99-cent store buying, 100 boxes of rice, 100 bags of 100 boxes of pasta, and whatever I could get my hands on that they would let me buy. Remind you, this was during the pandemic, the earlier stages where, they would look at me, and I was that guy in line with the cart full, and everyone looking at me, and I'm like almost a little bit like it's not me, it's not for me. I'm not buying my house. I'm not trying to stock up for I don't think I don't think the apocalypse is going to happen. But if you guys need groceries, these are being given out. And I would tell people in line what we were doing, and we'd have some come out, and yeah. But fortunately, we don't have to go out and do all that purchasing anymore. We've got partnered up, and they've been we've been blessed to be able to get these donations. and it ranges from everything from meats and dairy to, at times to, just the good staple items that you need in your house. Even get toilet paper and paper towels, which for a while there, nobody could get those. So we're trying to be, able to give to those again who are in need, and be able to let them know that if they're needing it again next week, that we'll still be here.
Yeah, that was it's an awesome thing that Freedom does. It was once again, I think someone like yourself, your leadership is something that's needed there. We all have kind of gifts, and that definitely is not my gift. You know what I mean?
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty compassionate with some, but we've had these talks before on you know, why do you have a Tesla and you're coming through to get groceries? And I
Yeah.
can't. This is how my head thinks, right? And I maybe it's because I got it for somebody else. I don't really know. You know what I mean? So I'm always got to put myself in check. You know what I mean? Or have somebody put me in check. But it's I think they have the right person that kind of leads all this stuff uh, that you do. I see you at church. We volunteer every week together, and rain or shine, we're usually there, and so that's been fun. What's now? So let me ask you this: on when you're when you guys, well, first of all, how do you guys getting donations now? How did you network that? You see what I'm talking about? I'm sure that you're
So
the one that kind of spearheaded that. I would imagine, right?
actually, I don't even take all the credit for that. I don't even take any of the credit for the donations part. I know Gabby Mondragon. She's on our staff there, and they came to Gabby one day and said, "Hey, could you reach out to, initially I was bringing the food bank stuff from the Valley Food Bank, and getting it from them, and that was just our local food bank, and I had some connections there, but in due time, like I said, it just wasn't enough. So Gabby went and took on the reins and said, okay. So she reached out to the LA food bank and connected with them, and they gave her some. It was a pretty long list of things she needed to do, and she complied, and uh, she got us accepted to be able to be put in. I won't say into a hat, because it was really, they told us at first what organizations could, or what places would allow us to come, because there was so much going on that places were already donating everywhere, so there was only a few spots open, but we took whatever we could, and then she partnered up with another church that was doing it, and they were receiving too much. So we were able to go and partner with them, and get some stuff from that church, and or when they were getting stuff, and I mean, we were taking 26-footer trucks with refrigerated trucks to get stuff, from Amazon Fresh out in North Hollywood, at 5 a.m. just to make sure we had this stuff. And in due time, we were able to get to this side of town, and our Amazon Fresh and Porter Ranch. They've blessed us with a lot in this last year, and as well as two of the targets in our local area. They were able to also help out. So by that, you've seen our request to, have our congregations pitch in to get us a refrigerated truck, because we can't get one all the time. Ryder, when we rent our truck, and we get it from Ryder, one, it's out of pocket, from the church's expenses, and two, it's it's not always available. We're not we're not leasing, and we're not listed under their must haves. They got, I think, during the Thanksgiving time, we couldn't get a truck. So Gabby knew somebody that was able to help us out. But yeah, Ryder was like, look, Whole Foods rented our truck, Honey Baked Hams rented our truck. So you got, a corporate, conglomerate that's going to say, hey, they've got dibs. They've rented, and they've picked it for a whole month. So that's where, it's like, how can we figure this out, and how can we, make this better? So that's why we've requested to try and see what we can do to get our own truck. And same for the shower truck, but not because of that reason. I think the shower truck, we want to be able to do it more often than just once a week. That's why we want to get the shower truck to go out and partner up, and do multiple, multiple days out there.
So let's look at this. So maybe you can help me. I'd like to get your feedback on this. So as you work with the homeless and those that are displaced and stuff like that, and you probably see the same people almost on a weekly, right? And so how do you encourage others when they're like, I'm homeless, and how long you been that way? 8 years, 10 years, come to the church every week getting stuff. In somebody's eyes, right there, in the most common people's eyes, are like, what are these guys doing to try and further their life? Why does it not go to the next step? How do you talk to people about that? How do you I mean, you're in that mix. So the layperson that looks at it and goes, how are you out there for 8 years and you're still coming and doing the same thing every week, and like there's no progress? How do you talk to people about that to continue the compassion for those that need that?
Yeah, that's hard because again, I want to lead them in the direction I'm leading the other people, and it's not like I don't. It's that I think they've gotten comfortable, and uh, that's a that's a hard position because when you get comfortable and you're reaping all your benefits off of the state, or you're getting people coming out week in and week out just giving you stuff. I mean, that's where I think they get a little enabled. And when this pandemic hit and they started opening up these Project Room Keys, or they built another shelter down on Canoga. It was like, hey, why don't you go there? And it's like, because I don't want to leave what I have. What do you have? Why do you collect all this if it's not doing anything for you? And then you've had the ones that said, where is this place? Can you take me? Can you tell me where it is? Or so we were able to get them, a few of them in there. And like I said earlier, I've gotten to get some out, and that's a great feeling because they didn't just plant the seed and not water it, because there was times I was already planting that seed, and we watered it, we nurtured it, we let them come back, we said, hey, have you talked to them? We followed up with them. And I don't know if you met the brother and sister on the Friendsgiving, or if you've seen them before, but the brother and sister that were out on the streets, they have a place out in Santa Clarita, and we were able to do that for them because we got them into to meet a social worker that then said, "Hey, let's help you out." And but during the pandemic, the Project Room Key, I've seen a few of them go to this and not just abuse it, not just say, "Okay, I'm going to go there for the 3 meals and for the and for the fact that I get a roof over my head," because they said, "No, we're done." I think they've got to come to a point of, they want the help, because you can't force feed them. You can lead the horse to water, but you can't force them to drink it. And I
Right.
think
Hmm.
we've done a real good job at that too, where it's like, okay, well, it's here if you want it. I extend the hand out as much as I can, but same thing like in the recovery, where I can give them as much as I can, but when the tough love has to come out, that's where it's an association by, thanks for coming, here you go. I used to hear this it's funny, at ACN. I used to hear the some will, some won't, so what, who, some
Right. Who's
wait, some
next?
what, who's next. Yeah.
Right.
And I try not to be so hard on that, but I do. I want to see which one really wants it out there, and the guy that wants it next, or the girl that wants it next, is going to be the one that gets my undivided attention. And we've been able to help some ladies go to the San Fernando Rescue Mission that were single women or battered out in the streets, that were, or single parent and been battered, and they take them in there. And we've got other partnerships that we've partnered with that can we can look at that if that's the avenue they want to go first. But yeah, it's a nurturing order, I guess you want to say it.
That's good feedback, and I think out of that too, I heard that you said like you have a brother and sister that, and I think that's what we miss most is some of these more positive stories. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you see, one of the ladies I helped that stayed here, she had a couple dogs. I remember when it was a really cold, rainy night, and she had two dogs, and I let this stay in the shed that I had, and she was here for a while, as a matter of fact. And
Hmm.
but she also has her own apartment. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so I think that's one of the important things. I'm sure you say, Chris, is that I really feel that there are answers to those that really want it. I think there is help for those that want to get it, and um, that's I mean, we've talked about this a little bit before too, right? I mean, you've got gyms that are $10 a month, where you could
Yeah.
where you can shower and
Uh,
you can, you know what I mean? And uh so it's a good that was some good feedback for just a layman, and then to hear some of the positive, uh I'm sure were you, I don't know, were you Dave's sponsor or not? No?
Yeah,
Or did you
yeah. Oh
bring
no,
him?
not sponsors. No, not just accountability, but yeah, Dave. He has. He's taken on a leadership role out of watching. What he needed to do. He did the steps, and in the end of the steps, we go out and we help others. And that 12 steps is
Mhm.
done. It's what we're supposed to go do next, and be the light in somebody else's life, and help them get through it, and be of service. And you see that man is of service. That man, he really does go above and beyond, and he brings people. Every week he's got a new person coming with him, and I remember at Lawrence before we left, we had those first two rows full of people that Pastor said, okay, I feel safe, but it's also where all these guys coming from, because you see some of the posts with those guys, and they just look like you want them to be your best friend so that you don't have to get you can be protected. uh, but
Yeah, right.
but
I know,
safety,
I know.
yeah,
That's where I got recruited because of it. You know what I mean? I got
yeah,
recruited because of your friends. Um, the to see that, but to see Dave's transformation too. So, I mean, knowing that Dave was in Fight Club too, yourself, and it being in an environment where it's a little more real. You know what I mean? The talk's a little more street. I walk that fine line between street, because I'm a little more real. I personally would rather hang with somebody like that, because down deep I think that you know uh there's a realness to them. I'm really not a big uh, you know I've been doing this stuff for a long time. I remember him in my younger years when I used to do homeschools, just when it was really just kind of Christians and kind of that out there type Christian. You know what I'm talking about, right? And
yeah, yeah,
it was the worst, bro. Okay, to get just how they were, or why would you charge us? And I'm like, what the heck? You know what I mean? Everything should be a service and stuff like that. I just remember it vividly, and it gave me a sour note. So to see, and I came from a Lutheran background too, by the way, the same thing, stand up,
okay,
stand down,
yeah,
and do the candles. And I was in a Lutheran school from third grade to ninth grade, and in North Hollywood, and so I come from that background also. So I never really realized what a relationship was until my brother, we kind of found what Rocky Peak was, and then I started the martial arts as a ministry, really
okay,
before anything else. And so uh, it's good to hear some positive. I think that's what lacks, because all you see when you drive, even here in town, is just like you just kind of shake your head at this stuff, and you never really hear the positive. Hey, this is where this guy came from, and you guys are in there, and you're right there in the pit, you're right there in the fight, and you're trying to pick that one person that's looking for the real help, and if they're looking for it, it's there for them. So, and I think that's a message that should resonate even with people here in town. You know what I mean? Because it gets a little bit hard because everybody kind of has a story. I know that we have um, we've got men in church too that's lost their boy, and you know, was on the streets for a long time just because. I mean, how do you deal?
yeah,
Even going through a real bad divorce or something like that, and not being able to do it right. It's just like you said, right? You can get yourself down in the dumps and really not just care about nothing. You know what I mean? Um, that even happened to me in a different way, right? Like I remember those months of things, and I was like, I didn't care about filing my taxes. I didn't care about doing any of that stuff. I just didn't care, and you
yeah,
know, it caught up to me, uh, because when you start caring, all that back stuff really starts catching up to you, and you know, and thank goodness, this is the year, this past year is all that stuff from back then. all those all that stuff is all paid off. It's all just done. You know what I mean? And so I know how you can get down in the dumps and get into a depression. So I don't know. I think I think that they got the right man for the job. I've seen just a complete turnaround. I don't know if you've ever really put out your testimony, what you've done. I don't know if you ever have that, or you haven't done it, or you do that in the privacy of your group. But to know that you come from a criminal element and then an addiction on top of it, and you just put it all down and completely changed yourself, and then your kids get to see that, and now you're doing that to other people, and I'm sure it's a celebration. Like when you guys get somebody from recovery that's all good to go. I mean, I'm sure that that's what you guys enjoy, seeing somebody else
Yeah.
getting to enjoy life, right?
Yes, because victory, to me, victory shouldn't just be celebrated once. It's a daily celebration, and we got to write about it. We got to tell people, if it's just in our daily, inventory, and we recognize it, that's one thing. But going out and sharing it, those wins every day mean something, and they can mean something to somebody else to see, like you said, where a person came from and where they may have, related to. So that's again, being able to share that testimony and be able to tell people, look, I was once in that seat too. It goes a long way because it's trusting the process, doing the little things. It's knowing that the big win can overcome the roadblocks and, and the barriers that leave the past behind us. Because that's what we got to really learn, not just in life, but, and not just in recovery, but in life. And knowing that as we move, further, forward, there's a future in front of us. We got to remember that and to look at the future to we may not know what that entails, but to look that there is a future and we can leave the past behind. It's part of the transformation process. It's a one day at a time. It's for me, it was giving it to God. It was knowing that His will was going to give me the strength, and not only to succeed, to become better and do better and have what I have today.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to even end this hour. That's just a good testament of the kind of man you are. And I would encourage, when you can, I see the church always doing one thing. I'd like to see some of the recovery, because I know how intimidating they can be. And, I'm always kind of up you get calls from me all the time. Hey, do you know this guy? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And why has he got a knife on his pocket? And, um, uh, so I run to you for certain things, but in the same token, I know this about people in that world. If they change themselves, they'll be the most loyal to you, and it's hard when you got tattoos on your face to feel that people are going to take you serious, or you're welcome, so it can be intimidating to the thing. So I think they got the right man for the job. I think you're doing just awesome. I was looking forward to this interview, because I did have some um and it's funny how I just learned a little bit more about I still am. I was laughing last night when I saw your ACN thing, and I'm like, how did we not run into each other? I know, Provenzano and all those guys, because
Oh yeah.
because I got friends with Larry Raskin. And how it happened is
Okay.
because martial arts. They're so intrigued that I was a black belt. I used to do all this brick breaking in the big national conventions, and it would be on that big screen. And
Okay.
and that's how I got to be really good friends with Raskin. And so, and our friendship just continued on after that. And
Yeah.
so it's those are some good guys too, man. Raskin is a strong Christian dude too. And
Absolutely.
you know, so it was good, man. It was a great interview, and I got to learn a little bit more about you. We'll be using you for our May testing, though. I can tell you that. So we're looking forward to that. What
Awesome.
food we're gonna get?
Cool.
All right, all right,
You
Chris.
got it, man.
Looking forward to it.
All
If you
right.
guys,
Take care.
anybody that wants to see you, you're out of Freedom Church in Chatsworth. So if there's anybody that's
Freedom Church.
listening that possibly needs any kind of look at recovery, whatever recovery looks like, it just doesn't have to be drugs and alcohol, I'm sure. Um,
No.
you're the pastor that leads that out of there. And if you got people that are struggling and you need a place to go, and I don't know, Ashley, do you know my girl Ashley here, Ashley Sage, or not?
Yes.
You know her?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Her mom was in a pivotal part in Rocky Peak's recovery. Her mom was the same
Okay.
thing. Now, she lost her mom a couple years ago, but
I
her
remember.
mom was
Yeah.
you remind me a lot of her, just a tough woman with a lot of love. And she just had a heart for those that struggle. and I see that you have the same thing. So they got the right man for the job, man. I enjoyed this hour, Chris. All right.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, appreciate you having me. And like I said, if anybody is struggling or needs help, come on down or just check out our website and, you can reach me through there.
Sounds good. All right. Has an awesome day,
All right.
man.
Take care.